This case is literally the stuff of nightmares, when a family would be terrorised by a stranger who was actually living within the walls of their own home. This case is just so disturbing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be in the world right now. Hello, I'm Lloyd, and today you're watching When Evil Follows.
His family says they never ever want to let that man out of jail again, and they want him to rot in jail for the rest of his life.
Today's case sees us heading over to the much warmer climate of America, more specifically Massachusetts, Townsend. Townsend is a shy town in Middlesex County with a acute population of around 9,500 people to date. Townsend to this very day remains to be a relatively low-key residential town with slow advances in financial growth and modern-day development. However, this sleepy little town has kept all of its historical traditions, and it's still widely believed to be the perfect place to raise a small family. This small town is completely surrounded and submerged in the most stunning and beautiful sights one could ever hope to see. With its beautiful Nine Falls Park and Northern Rail Trail, that along with its community bikeways, is a completely hidden gem, a treasure trove full of natural beauty and amazing sights. But in saying that, this case just might make you rethink all of the highlighted statistics that I've just mentioned. Daniel Laplante was born into a broken family home on the 16th of May in the year of 1970 in Middlesex County, Townsend, Massachusetts. He lived with his mother and stepfather and his two brothers, Stephen and Matthew, in a large and scruffy untidy home just at the end of South Avenue. Their home was reported to have been quite overrun with wild animals and garbage and junk, and family members' appearances was described by many as quite dirty, causing the neighbours and many of the locals to avoid communication with the family. Now, growing up, Daniel wasn't a happy child at all. He didn't get on with his own brothers or his parents, and was mentally and sexually abused from a young age, supposedly by his stepfather. Unsurprisingly, Daniel really struggled at school both emotionally and mentally, and given the fact that he suffered with dyslexia would only complicate matters further. He was unable to make friends and was very low in self-confidence. He was what many people would describe as a loner, and he didn't really participate in any of the school activities without having to be forced to do so by the teachers. The children would often laugh at Daniel and call him names due to his low levels of hygiene and strange behavioural tendencies and communicational skills. By the time Daniel hit the age of 13 years old, his behaviour was now becoming much more strange and bizarre, which would eventually lead him to seeing a psychotherapist for treatment. However, at some point during this stage of his treatment, it's widely believed that Daniel was actually sexually abused by a mental health professional. And if that was true, is there any wonder why people would now be describing Daniel as being quite scary and strange? Daniel was a child who was by now untrusting and completely disconnected from his childhood and any sense of meaningful reality. And so it wasn't too long before Daniel would embrace the life of crime and serious maladjusted behaviour throughout his entire life. His criminal episodes would begin breaking into other family homes within the local area, and he would take unvaluable items such as hair bubbles or underwear. On other occasions, he would simply break into a family property and move furniture around before leaving empty-handed, purely to unsettle the occupants, as they would soon realise that somebody has broken in and out of their home, leaving the property owners with a bitter and fearful and uncomfortable feeling. Now, by the age of 16, somehow Daniel had obtained the phone number of a local girl who was named Annie Andrews. Annie was just 1 year younger than Daniel. She was 15 years old, and she lived with her father Brian and her younger sister Jessica. Unfortunately, Annie's mother had just recently passed away as she was battling with cancer, and obviously this family was left quite vulnerable and distraught. However, Daniel and Annie would strike up a telephone call relationship, during which time Daniel would go on to describe himself to Annie. Yeah, he told her that he was a student at the nearby high school and that he was the captain of the school football team. And after many, many long phone calls, Annie would finally agree to meet up with Daniel and go on a date with him. But when he arrived at the house to collect her, Annie was deeply disappointed because he didn't look anything like he described to her on the telephone. Not wanting to make a fuss about it, Annie still decided to go on a date with Daniel. And they went to the ice cream bar. And it was during their time out together, Daniel started asking some really inappropriate questions relating towards the death of Annie's mother. Yeah, he was asking some really f***ed up questions. He was asking questions like, "Oh, how badly did she suffer in the last days of her life? How did it make you feel seeing her dying in her last moments?" Just really, really inappropriate questions. And it was by the end of their day, Annie had come to feel really uneasy being in Daniel's company. And so she decided to quit all communication and contact with him. She was already going through so much emotionally, so she made the decision to focus more on her family and herself. And that's exactly what she did. Now at this time, Annie's father was working 5 days a week and really long hours, simply to support the family, whilst at the same time still dealing with the sad loss of losing his wife, leaving both Annie and Jessica at home alone. It was around this time as well, Daniel had somehow managed to gain entry into the Andrews property. He then made his way upstairs, undetected, into Annie and Jessica's bedroom. Once inside their bedroom, Daniel pulled back one of the wooden panels that was connected to the back wall behind Annie's dressing table. He then climbed inside and lived within the walls of the house. Fast forward just 2 months and it's now the beginning of the winter season in the year of 1986. The days were cooling off and the nights were becoming much longer and much colder. And so both girls were now spending much more time within their bedroom, all wrapped up snug and warm within the blankets or bed sheets, talking about boys and just chilling out playing board games, when they would soon begin hearing strange noises coming from within the family home, from bangs to knocks and taps, to the sound of footsteps on the upper stairs landing, even the sound of doors opening and then closing with no obvious cause of means. These strange and creepy sounds would continue on different nights of the week and at different hours of the evening, and eventually both girls would believe that their house was indeed haunted. Freaked out by these occurring nightly and creepy sounds, both Annie and Jessica would tell their dad about these strange noises, but he would quickly dismiss the sounds as normal, regular and usual creaks that genuinely do occur in houses, especially during the winter. Besides, Brian just thought they were playing silly games and there was nothing more to it, when in reality he couldn't have been further away from the horrifying truth. Annie and Jessica, however, they still believed that their house was haunted, and so this one evening, when the girl's father was at work, they both decided to use a Ouija board and try and contact their mother. Daniel, seeing this through the tiny pinholes in the wall that he made, he decided to play a trick on the girls, and he began tapping on the wall every time the girls would ask the Ouija board a question, tricking both of the girls in believing that their mother in the world of spirit was now inside the house, watching over them both, giving both girls the chills, but at the same time a sense of comfort, knowing that their mother is still close by. The very next day, both girls would approach their father for the second time in relation to the strange sounds coming from within their house. They both told him that they believed that the tapping was their mother and that she was communicating with them from beyond the grave. However, every time Brian was home, these strange sounds and tapping would just completely disappear. I mean, the sounds would completely stop. And so for that reason alone, Brian just couldn't believe what the girls were telling him. He didn't believe their claims. In fact, he told both of his daughters that should this stupidity continue, then he would have no other choice but to put them both into emotional therapy and grievance counselling. Unhappy with their father's words, both girls were then sent to their bedroom for the rest of the evening. The next day, Brian went to work, and the tapping, guess what? It started up again. But this time, both girls felt that whatever was tapping and trying to catch their attention just wasn't their mother, as their mother would never play games that would lead them into any kind of trouble. That same night, the tapping persistently continued. However, both girls completely ignored the strange sounds happening around them. Unbelievably, these strange sounds would continue within the family home for a further 6 months. It was a Friday, and early in the afternoon when both girls would return home from school, only to find a creepy message written on the kitchen wall that was written in blood. The message said, "I'm in your bedroom. Come and find me." And I'd be gone. Straight out that back door. And that's exactly what the girls did. They ran across the road to the neighbour's house, who then phoned the father, and he immediately came racing back home to find out what the hell's going on. Now, Brian entered his property via the back door, and he walked into the kitchen, and almost immediately he noticed the bloody writing on the wall. He then slowly creeped up the stairs, heading towards the girl's bedroom. Once there, he slowly opened the bedroom door, and as the door opened, he noticed that there was nobody there. There was nobody inside, and so he walked into the girl's bedroom and he sat down on the bed. Held his head and he's like, what's going on? What's going on in my house? And as he's thinking that, he's looking directly in front of him at the floor, in between the legs of Annie's dressing table. And that's when he noticed a slight imperfection within the walling panels. And so he pulled back on the loose panel to investigate and to see what's going on. And to his complete and utter horror, right there in front of him on the floor within the walls of his daughter's bedroom was a sleeping bag and other items that had been taken from inside the house. A toothbrush, some of the girls' underwear and some family photographs and stale food, along with a load of rubbish. Brian is like, what the hell, in total shock, and he walks back down the stairs and he heads towards the front room. And in pure terror, there stood in the corner of the room was Daniel, wearing his dead wife's wedding dress with makeup on his face, and in his left hand was a large hatchet. Now, this is where it gets a little bit blurry because somehow Brian managed to chase him out the house, and just like that, he disappeared, he went missing. Just the next day, the police managed to find Daniel, who was hiding behind a bin near a skip, and he was quickly arrested and was given a light sentence for breaking and entering. However, he was soon released, just months later. And now this is where the story gets even more horrific. Tragic even. On the 1st of December in the year of 1987, he broke into a neighbouring cottage and stole a hand pistol. And then, the following week, Daniel entered the home of the Gustafsson family from the upstairs window. And once inside the property, he began to sneak down the stairs as quietly as he possibly could. Undetected, he makes his way downstairs, then entering into the family front room with a gun in his hand, only to find Priscilla Garston, who was already 4 months pregnant with her third child. He then raped her and then shot her multiple times at point blank range. He then ran up the stairs and he turned his attention to the 2 children that were in their bedrooms, 7-year-old Abigail and 5-year-old William. Daniel took 7-year-old Abigail into the bathroom and ran a bath and then drowned her in the bathtub. And this evil and cruel act would be the same fate for 5-year-old William. This monster broke into the family home, raped and then shot Priscilla 6 times from point blank range, and then murdered both of these 2 beautiful children with no thought whatsoever. He simply didn't care. It was all entertainment to him. Because of the trademark break-in, it didn't take long for the police to link Daniel to the murders, and the very next day a manhunt began. Just 3 days later, he was spotted by a member of the public who recognised Daniel from the police reports and photo fits, and so the police came racing to the scene as to where Daniel tried running away and hiding in a dumpster. Not that it did him much good, because he was arrested and then taken down to the station for questioning. During his time in questioning, a hair follicle belonging to Abigail was found on Daniel's clothing, which only confirmed to the police that they had found their killer. And in less than just 1 year, Daniel Laplante was sentenced to 3 life-term sentences to serve behind bars for the murders of Priscilla, 7-year-old Abigail, and 5-year-old William. This is Daniel today. Have a good look at him. He's appealed his sentence multiple times and has been denied every single time. And he still remains behind bars to this very day. Hello there, and thank you for watching another episode of When Evil Follows. If you have enjoyed today's video, then please pulverise that like button. And if it's your first time around here, please subscribe to the channel. Remember to hit the bell, that way you'll receive notifications and ensure that you won't miss out on any of our great up and coming videos, just like this one. So what do you think to Daniel Laplante's actions? Do you think his upbringing was to blame? Let me know which part of this case freaked you the most. And as always, stay safe, look after yourself, and I'll see you next time when evil follows. Bye.